7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Oh, I clicked the button too soon. No, I didn't click the button. Wait. There we go. Yes. I knew it was going to go wrong. I was in studio mode. Oh. Well, we got close. Hey? Good morning, everybody.
It's the afternoon.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Here in the UK.
Yeah.
But it's morning somewhere. So good morning,
somewhere.
Yes, it's morning in the Netherlands, isn't it? Are they an hour ahead?
I don't think it's that. I think it's an hour, Tim. So it might not be that much difference.
Well, it's 12:30, so we're on the cusp of it being a morning.
Wait a second, Alex and Tim. I have forgotten my pen.
Oh no!
Could anyone lend me one?
Yes, here you go.
Alex!
Alex! Alex! No, the other way!
Thank you! That was our shenanigans that Tim promised.
So
oh my dear. I didn't swear
so that is why when you do a presentation, you do need to actually practice things beforehand.
Yes, well,
that's
we did
not
practice
true. We did practice that beforehand.
Also, today I'm being sponsored by Kit Kat.
But not sponsored at all, because Kit Kat don't sponsor us.
You were supposed to say, Tim, take a break. Oh
yeah, Tim, take a break from that sponsorship deal.
I'm pleased that we've got such a professional show. Alex, what we're talking about today?
So today we're talking about presentations and specifically performing in them. So first of all, we're going to talk about ways that you could practice before you do your presentation, what you can do to prepare to really get yourself in the right position to do well. Then we're going to talk about presentation delivery and what methods you could use when you're actually in the presentation to get the most marks you can do. Then we're going to have some student advice as well. And we're going to talk about coping with nerves. So Tim and Naomi are going to discuss how they cope with nerves.
We will indeed, yes. I think it's going to be really good fun. I just did a screen change thingy because I've got all the controls. We would really like it if you aren't already, if you liked and subscribed, and tell all your friends about it as well, because I have this morning decided on the ambitious challenge that we are going to have 500 subscribers by Christmas. So yeah, that's why we need sponsors, because we need to do giveaways, don't we? That's
no, we need to buy them.
But the best way to get subscribers or to even get people interested is to have good content. So
are we going back to topic already, Alex? Okay, come on then.
So yeah, we're talking about presentations and presentation assessment. So Tim, would you like to outline what the presentation assessment is?
Yeah, so drawing on my experience from having students do presentations in my modules and things like that, I know that it is one of those things that students really don't like doing, and I think the first thing to say is that we all know that and we all acknowledge that. Having said that, a presentation is an important piece of assessment, certainly in particular courses, because what we would like to see is whether you're confident in transmitting information to a particular audience. So even though at university we are in a sort of practice environment, when you are in a job, when you actually are having a career somewhere, you'll be presenting all the time. I don't know how often between us, what do we do before COVID? 3-4 times a week we had a presentation, I would say, something like that. Actually, we're doing it now, aren't we? So,
yes.
Yeah, it's just a really important skill. It's something that you need to have as part of your toolkit, and being able to communicate clearly to an audience is really important, and the way to test that is by a presentation.
Mm-hmm. So what type of things make up a presentation then, Tim?
So usually it involves you speaking to a particular audience, so it could be just a lecturer, a group of lecturers, it could be a lecturer and a group of students, it could even be just a group of students. So within the university setting, you're usually talking to people that you know, and that's something that we'll talk about later. We'll talk a bit more about that. But sometimes, you know, in the job setting, you might have to do presentations as part of your interview process. When you apply for a job, you might have to do presentations as a sales manager, as a marketing manager. You know, just being able to explain a concept clearly and concisely in a presentation is the key to being a good presenter, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think presentation assessments are so crucial. Like every role that I've had, there's some element of presenting in there. even if it's just talking to an audience in terms of not having a presentation, as in a formal PowerPoint presentation, but just selling something or discussing something or pitching an idea. All those are forms of presentation, and at university, they really do try and prepare you for that. So the first thing, or the first typical area that we're going to talk about today, is actually what steps you can take before the presentation to enable you to actually achieve what you want to achieve. So I'm first going to go to Naomi. So Naomi, why do you think it's actually important to even prepare for presentations? Why shouldn't you just go and just do it off the cuff, as they say?
I personally think it's important to prepare for everything. So presentations absolutely come under that. So I want to talk just about two things with relation to this. So firstly, from my personal perspective, I like to prepare for, as I say, everything. I don't like to go into any situation feeling unprepared. Tim is my line manager. He knows this. And so, for example, last week, Tim hauled me virtually. I was virtually hauled into a meeting and asked questions on a topic that I hadn't thought about in about 6 months, with no time to prepare at all. I can do that. I can answer those questions, but I don't enjoy it. And I don't do it as well as if I have had time to prepare. I got to go away and write a nice email where I set out everything, and I could go back and check my records and do my preparation and put it into a nice email afterwards. So that made me feel better. But for me, I really noticed that difference. So for me, it's important to prepare. It's important that I have all that information to hand that I'm going to need. So if someone does ask me a question, I'm prepared to answer it, and I'm not looking like I'm in a flat. I can hear an echo. Is that normal?
Yes, there's an echo from Tim. I was just about to mention it.
Oh. Is that?
So Tim, either turn your audio down slightly or put some headphones on.
We've established Tim's headphones are broken. He cannot put
I'm not
headphones on.
sure I can do that. That's because
Okay,
we're using Google Meet.
Whilst Tim thinks, I'm going to carry on talking about my second point, because I'm very aware that there are some people who do not work like that. So I would say, Tim, am I right? You are one of these people who works much better unprepared than I work unprepared, certainly. But even so, even if you are the kind of person that works better unprepared, I think for a formal presentation, particularly one that's assessed, that preparation is still going to be really important. So you don't know what questions you're going to get asked, and the more information you have at your fingertips, the better, the more you can prepare for that. If you haven't done a presentation before, you don't know how you're going to react underneath that assessed presentation environment, and that might be very different. You might feel that you can go into a conversation or a meeting or a seminar unprepared, but this is actually a very different environment. It feels different as a presenter stood in front of a group of people, or even just one person or a camera. It feels different to contributing in a seminar or anything else. So even if you think you're better off the cuff, I would say do some preparation. Don't over prepare, and I think we might talk about that later. But some preparation is really key, so that you've at least got an idea of what you're going to say, I think. Because as someone who has watched presentations, I think it is often quite easy to tell if the person talking has an idea of what they're planning on saying beforehand or not. So you want to come across as the person that knows what they're talking about rather than the person that doesn't. And I guess that sums up for me why it's a good idea to prepare.
Well, I totally agree with that. I like the idea that you said about how you do need to know what you're talking about, but also don't always over prepare. So there is a balance to be hit. And hopefully with the advice that we are about to give now about how methods that you can prepare and ways that you can prepare, that can really help. So, Tim, have you got a way that you'd like to discuss that people could use to help prepare for a presentation?
Yes. So, first thing is check your tech. I don't know if we are actually broadcasting with echo. I'm not sure we are. It might be that you're having feedback on your Google Meet, but I might be wrong.
Dianna doesn't hear it, and I trust Dianna.
Yes. If we do hear it again now, then do let me know, Dianna, and then we'll fix it. We'll try. So, anyway, what was the question again, Alex?
So, methods about preparing for presentations. So, you just said about how you can help prepare by making sure in advance that your tech works.
Yeah, so making sure that your tech works is really important, but also you can actually Is this where we switch to the PowerPoint? I think we'll switch to the PowerPoint.
No, I don't think we have PowerPoint for this one, Tim.
Oh, right, okay. So, how can you prepare effectively? We're making a mess of it already.
I agree with your point, Tim.
Hey? Yeah.
Shall I make my point?
Yeah, keep making your point, Naomi. I'll just think about the question for a second.
So my point that I want to make is practice. And I would say to prepare for a presentation, practice, practice, practice. That's certainly what I've done. I have always practiced for such things. I was saying to Alex and Tim earlier when we were in fact preparing for this, much as that may surprise everyone watching. My mum was very keen on my sister and myself. We did lots of performances as children. So we would recite poetry, we would do readings in church, all these kinds of things. And she would have us practicing beforehand. So I really got into the habit of doing it, practicing to my mother as an audience, and she would give feedback and then I would work on that. And that's something I've really taken through to other environments. So I think the first main presentation I ever did was for a job interview. And I remember I was... It was at the library. It was an internal job within the library, and I remember being in Britannia Mill Library. I booked out one of the study rooms at Britannia Mill Library. I got myself a dictaphone, and I practiced. I practiced my presentation, and I practiced it again, and I practiced it again, and that I think is a really key tip.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. The thing I always say about presentations is to practice them as much as possible. If anyone saw the group presentations, part of the live stream that happened last week, I recommended practicing with your group in advance so that you could organise the timings and work out who's saying what and when. And that's something that I would echo again here. And I think if we had more time for this presentation to prepare them, we would have worked that out just the same way. But yeah, practicing is really important, especially if you're doing solo presentations as well, just as Naomi says. So even if that's online, using different technologies and so on, and we'll talk about those technologies later that you can use to prepare and practice. So my piece of advice is that actually, as much as practicing is important, something which I think is slightly more important is actually making sure that the content that you've got actually is relevant to the question and actually is what you need to do. So presentations are still assessments. So by that, what I mean is, just as a research assessment or an essay, you still need to do research and to actually make sure that you're covering the right things and know what you're talking about. So I would recommend having a look at the marking criteria and make it so that your presentation hits what is relevant to that presentation. And make sure you have opportunities to do that as well. And then once you then practice that, you can make sure it's right. So practicing is still really important, but I say make sure you actually are talking about what they need to talk about.
Yeah, and as part of that, Alex, I've just highlighted something, by the way. I know that you've seen it in the in our document, so that's why I'm a bit confused. But don't worry about it. I'm going to talk about the next bit here that I've highlighted now. Is that it's really important that you research your topic as well. So presentation, a lot of the time, if you're presenting to a lecturer, for example, they will actually have certain questions that they want to get the right answer to, and you might not have actually included that in your presentation, or it's a continuation of something that you've said in your presentation. So it's actually really important to do your research properly, just like you would do with an essay or some other piece of work, so you're prepared for those questions. So even if they come out of the blue, it doesn't really throw you. It means that you can still answer the question. You've done the work to actually get the right answer out there, basically. So I think that's quite an important bit about presenting in general. Don't become too reliant on the information that you are putting on the slides and that you've prepared to talk for. Also bear in mind that you will quite likely get questions that are not about content that's on your slides and that you've prepared for.
So yeah, definitely learn the area around the topic rather than just the narrow lens of what is on your slides. And I would also recommend, from what you've got in your slides and also the topic area, trying to predict certain questions so that you have information ready to combat those questions. So spend a little bit of time thinking about what you might be asked. So Naomi, what's your next piece of advice about preparing for presentations?
Yes, I've just turned my mic back on. I'd been muted. We've got all kinds of chaos happening in my household right now. But hopefully not too much that will come through. So my next piece of advice is to plan what you're going to do immediately before that presentation. So I would plan what I'm going to do maybe for half an hour before the presentation. So you might not be able to control what time that presentation is, but if you can plan what you're doing in that half hour and make sure it's something that's not too stressful, I would say probably not too relaxing either. You need to get a balance there. If you're traveling somewhere, for example, to give a presentation, make sure that you have planned your travel such that you are going to arrive in good time. You don't want to go into a presentation straight from rushing off a bus or a train or whatever, or having been circling around looking for somewhere for ages. I have to say, I was thinking, again, we were talking about this earlier, and I was thinking when I arrived for my first interview at the library, I'd gone in to the university a couple of days beforehand and done the entire journey as a trial run, and made sure I knew where I was going within the university.
It's not only
and then
that,
I arrived
Naomi,
early.
sorry to interrupt there, but it's actually if you have the chance to practice in the room where you know you will be presenting, that's really valuable as well. Just so you get a feel for the room, for the space, but also for the equipment that's there. Yeah, that's a really good tip.
Yeah. So yes, that sums up my advice, to think about what you're doing in that half hour beforehand, so that you don't go in rushed from anything else. If you can, try and set that time aside.
Here's
So,
one
of
thing.
interest. Sorry, Tim.
Yes, this is the joy of being with the three of us, because we'll get these moments, which is totally calculated and all prepared. One of the things I would say is that the one thing you really shouldn't do in that half hour is get wound up by your colleagues. One of the things I always see happen is that people are waiting in the same space, and someone has just done a presentation, comes out, is devastated because something went wrong, or they believe that they messed up, or whatever it is, and that negative energy just swipes through the room, and then everybody goes, oh no, if they got it wrong, I'm going to get it wrong. And when you get to that state, you've messed it up, basically. So try and separate yourself from your colleagues as well. Usually it's possible to sit and wait somewhere that's not with the people that are also doing presentations, and don't get yourself worked up by whatever they've been going through. Sorry, Alex, it's your turn now.
It's okay. I was just going to say, out of interest, what do we do before a presentation starts? So what's the thing you both do in the half an hour or 20 minutes before a presentation starts?
Can I start on that one?
Yes, go for it.
Yeah. So for me, I always make sure, this is a really basic tip, genuinely really basic tip, but I make sure I have water. Yes. Oh, very good. And I make sure I've been to the toilet. Really daft, but the times that you're presenting, especially if it's stressful, and you're standing there, you think, oh, I need a wee. Trust me, that's going to be a dreadful presentation, because you're actually radiating in a yellow faintish, yellow tint to the room, that you are, thinking about something different than what you're presenting. So make sure you just go to the toilet before as well. I know, we don't like talking about going to toilets and stuff, but genuinely, that's such a good tip. Just go, see if you need to do anything. If you don't, fine, don't worry about it. But if you do, then it's definitely a benefit.
And that was actually a key part of what I was going to say as well.
Was it?
Because when Alex asked what would you do in the half hour before a presentation, my first thought was I would go and have a coffee, and then I thought, no, I wouldn't do that for the reason that Tim has just mentioned. I would stop myself going and having a coffee. Yeah. I would sit and read. In fact, I vivid memory of being so. Most of the jobs I've presented for have been within the library, so the presentations have happened in the library. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Kedleston Road Library, there is a lovely teaching room, L102, and it's right near the school practice section, which has got the kid books. So I would sit, because I would get there early, obviously, sit outside and find one of the kids' books to read.
Yeah, just a distraction more than anything else.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a valid point as well. People get caught up in their presentation notes and just keep reading everything, again and again and again. You're getting so stuck into what you think you're going to have to say that when you're there at the moment, and we'll talk about this later, you say something wrong and it throws you off. It knocks your confidence. So being over prepared is actually a really bad thing, and it's something to be aware of as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And with Naomi's practice point, I usually do a practice about 1 or 2 hours before the event, depending how long the presentation is going to be. And then within the hour before, I don't do any practicing. Otherwise, I might be a bit robotic. So what I would do instead is I listen to music. So before any of my presentations that I do in work for the skills team. So, for example, this one, I sat there listening to music. That's generally like soundtrack music, but it's whatever music calms you down. I actually listen to fairly intense music to hype myself up, but I don't listen to chill music because I want to be like fairly hyped for all these things. But that's just my personal preference. And I know, Tim, you like to listen to music as well, don't you, for that
Absolutely,
sort of thing?
Yeah. Music really. If you, how do you call it? If you can get into music, it can give you space that you can disappear into, and that's really useful. It just helps you to forget what else is going on around you. And I'm a bit weird. I think I've discussed it before on one of these broadcasters in a video. But I really like hardcore house, which is really loud, really, it blocks out everything around it. So if I go into a stressful situation, I tend to listen to that because it actually calms me down in a weird way. It distracts me so much that I don't care about what else is going on around me, and it really helps me. But it's different for everyone. Like Alex says, soundtrack music. You can beat a bit of Philip Glass, for example, or what's that other guy called? The famous composer who does loads of soundtracks.
Hans Zimmer?
That's it, Hans Zimmer, yeah. And that if that calms you down, great, use it. Those of you that come to our workshops know that I like to play some lo-fi music before we actually start, just to calm things down as well, but also to test the audio. And that can be really great as well, if that gives you the opportunity to think about something else, then that's great. If it helps you to concentrate, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't listen to music at all. I'm just putting this in there. I don't listen to music at all, ever. At any point in my life, really. It's just not something that features in my life.
You're just an enigma. Just an enigma.
So, Tim, have you got any more pieces of advice that you'd like to give before we move on to our student tips for preparing for presentations?
Is this where I can talk about the rehearsal code?
Yes, it is, Tim.
Good. So, I'm just going to switch it up to show you something really cool. And I need to click this button here, and then I click that button there, and you shall now see the PowerPoint. So this is an interesting one. We were preparing earlier. We generally were preparing despite making mistakes. And we found that this function does not exist in the full-fat PowerPoint application that you get on your desktop. But it does exist in Office 365 PowerPoint. And I hope you will be able to see that if I use the search button here and I type rehearse with coach, I don't know what it shows now. This is scary because it's gone full screen. I don't think it's showing that. No, it's not showing it. Okay. But when you click on rehearse with coach, oh, it has gone full screen. Let's get out of here. Yes, quick, let's get out of there. But yeah, rehearse with coach actually allows you to practice your presentation, and it's really cool because it doesn't just allow you to go through your presentation by clicking and clicking. It listens to your voice as you're doing your presentation. It'll give you feedback on your use of voice. It'll tell you whether you're going too fast or whether you're going too slow, whether you're making exciting noises every now and then. So it's a really nice, powerful tool that can help you to prepare for your presentation. And not only that, you can use this not on your own, but also with a group. So again, it's really useful if you're with a bigger group to actually play around with this and have a go at rehearse with a coach. And then whilst we are here, I'm just going to do... Oh, why is that not working? That should be working. Oh, yes, there we go. There we go. Transition. So this is the full-fat PowerPoint desktop application. And like I said, you can't actually use rehearse with coach here, but you can do rehearse timings. And again, that just helps you to time your presentation, and you can record it and then actually listen back to it, because it will also, if it will hover over there for a second, it will also record your voice as you are doing that, and that is really powerful. And again, that's something that you can use to get better yourself at presenting. And we are back. Yay! Nobody saw you leave, Naomi. That was so professional.
No, nobody will know that I left during that segment.
Except for everyone who's now heard that.
Yeah,
Yes,
well, that doesn't
indeed.
matter. That doesn't
Just for reference, everybody, both my children are at home at the moment. One of them now featuring in this live stream.
Hello, Miriam!
That's why things are a bit.
Oh,
are a
there's
bit
Nicholas.
chaotic
Hi,
for a sec.
Nicholas.
I do apologise. I'm going to mute myself. Sorry.
If you need to turn the video off as well, don't worry about that.
This is a great example, though, Alex, of things that can go wrong in presentations. And we were talking earlier. Just tell us about the problem that you had, Alex.
Which problem that I had, Tim?
Did you not have a furry creature?
Oh, I did, yes.
Yeah.
Some would say that's not a problem. So I have a cat, and my cat decided that because it was raining, that she would just sit on my desk in front of my computer. So in the 30 minutes before this presentation today, rather than listen to music like I usually would, I was trying to convince my cat to go outside.
Yes.
Otherwise, my cat would currently be the star of the show.
It just gives,
I'm sorry. My child is clearly going to be the star of the show.
Oh, I know. I was about to say. Yeah.
So, shall we go to the next section, Alexander Wood?
Yes. So, as well as our tips, something that we always like to do for these presentations is to get some student feedback on what students think is the best advice for how they prepare for presentations. If you have any advice for how you would prepare for presentations, feel free to write it in the chat whilst we discuss what other students have said via social media, and also commenting in our in our note-taking presentation workshop.
How many people did we get in that session, Alex?
In the session yesterday, we had 35-ish.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Although lots of people do like to sign up so that they can get the recording afterwards. So the first piece of advice that we got says this: I think that knowing your audience would be useful advice to ensure that you pitch the presentation at the right level using the correct tone. So knowing your audience is really important then. So Tim, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's a bit of history. When I did my, it wasn't technically my first degree because it was my third attempt at my first degree, but we had a very rigid, sort of approach to teaching students how to present, and a lot of presenting as part of the course, if you like. And our communications lecturers, who were brilliant, they were lovely, lovely people, actually gave us all sorts of tips and advice on how to do presentations. And I will never forget, and this could be the worst ever advice for you, and it might not work for you at all. But one of the things that they would say is, look at your audience and imagine that they are not wearing any clothes, and it'll drop the curtain between you and them, right? And this is very Dutch, by the way. I see Alex and Naomi flinching at it.
This is not advice that I would use.
This is not advice that I would use. No, okay. But the reason they said that, so I will explain the psychology behind it. The reason they said that is that people that have to sit there, listen to you present, also have feelings, right? So when they are listening to you, they have to put in effort to understand what you are saying. And actually, the thinking behind the no clothes thing is that they would feel ashamed if they stood where you're standing as well, especially if they weren't wearing any clothes, right? So I think I've nuanced that a little bit more, but understanding your audience is really important. One of the most difficult things when it comes to presenting is actually engaging your audience, and that can be really difficult if you don't know who you're going to be speaking to. So think about that as well. It's an important part of presenting is making sure that you actually engage with your audience. And if you know who is in your audience, that becomes 10 times easier because you will know them and you'll be able to pick up on, little signs and things like that.
Yeah. So, for example, if I'm doing a referencing class to at the start of the year, I might try to explain what referencing is. Whereas if I'm doing it to people in the third year, I won't spend the time explaining what referencing is as such. I talk about the tips and advice to do it. So really look at who your audience is. Is it lecturers? Is it just the general public? And target your content towards that. So the second piece of advice that we were given from students is to make sure that your presentation is clear, but visual. So don't make your presentation text heavy. So thank you to that student. Does anyone have any comments about that?
Naomi, do you want to say something, or shall I pick that one up?
I think it's always an interesting question as to what you put in the text of your slides and what you don't. And it's one of the things that lots of people work lots of different ways in terms of how they process information and how they present it as well. So if there is key bits of information that you think you might forget, for example, then it might be really handy to pop that into the text of your slide. If you know that you've got, or you want those prompts to get you going. I have to say, I have only ever witnessed one presentation given by anybody who used purely images on slides to prompt them for what they were going to say, and that was Dr. Zelstra in this live stream. So Tim is genuinely the only person I've ever seen who's done that, but I did note it at the time. I was sat there watching the presentation. I thought, I have never seen anyone do that before. But Tim, you're obviously someone that can do that. Me personally, I would need those verbal prompts of words to keep me going. So it might be worth experimenting with.
Yeah.
Try talking to a slide with images, try talking to a slide with text, and see how you get on.
Yeah, there's actually a technique about a 5-minute presentation with just images, which is where I picked that up, and I want to call it Pecha presentations. It might be worth Googling that at some point, because that was where I learned that. One of the things I will say about this as well, in addition, the worst lecture I have ever witnessed myself was from someone who I thought would be really good, and all they did was literally have 80 slides and read every slide word for word. If you want to kill a presentation off, if you want your audience to fall asleep, think that they're all idiots that can't read and read out word for word what's on the slide, because that's what you're going to get, right? You expect your audience to be able to read, and you know, just using the words on the slide doesn't add anything. You might as well not be there. You might as well get a robot to read out the slides. So what's the point of presenting like that? So for me, having visual is far more important most of the time than having words as well.
Oh, thank you, Natalie, who says it is Pecha. She's done it for team building, super technique. Yeah. I really do like the having less text on the slide. I do struggle at times when I've got a very content-heavy presentation. So anyone who's attending my academic writing presentation will know that that's very, very text-heavy. It's too text-heavy, in my opinion. I want to make it less text-heavy. But where possible, I will try and have less text on the slide and more pictures.
But there's a place for text as well, right? It's not that you should be textless. Sometimes you need to prompt your audience as well. Sometimes, you know, you can actually make your presentation more effective having a really good question on the slide that you're not asking, you're not actually verbalizing, but because it's on the slide, people think about that whilst they are listening to you. So there's different ways of using text, and there needs to be a balance in there. But yeah, as Natalie says, thank you. It is indeed Pecha. So do Google that. It's a really cool technique to get better at presenting as well and gain confidence.
So I'm going to look into that. I think that's really interesting.
So it's not about being textless, but just trying to avoid being text heavy as such.
Yeah.
So the third piece of advice that we were given by students is to practice the presentations, but do be prepared to improvise, and do be prepared for improvisation and for questions that you're given. So I think that actually is really important, because if you have a rigid plan or a script, which from my background in law, lots of students came prepared for their case with just a script, and they try and read off the script that they were given. And if they were asked a question or ended up covering something in the wrong order, they trip themselves up and end up not knowing what to say. So I'd never recommend reading from a script. Something which we are doing right now is we talk from bullet points. And it doesn't matter what order those bullet points go in. We just go with what is the best flow in the moment. So we have a plan currently, but we're not expecting to stick to that rigidly. Otherwise, anytime Tim, Naomi, or myself make a comment that isn't on the script, we'd all be panicking. So yeah, I totally agree. Be prepared to improvisation, and do prepared to avoid. Do prepared to deviate from the script that you've planned.
Yes.
Yes. So the final piece of advice that we got from students so far, if you have got any advice, feel free to put it in the chat, is to be prepared for technology not to work. So, for example, videos not to play, and to have a backup plan for if that does happen.
it really hangs together with what you just said, Alex, as well, doesn't it? You know, things go wrong in presentations. Be prepared for that. I'll never forget that I did a presentation. I made a PowerPoint, 25 slides, whatever it was, supposed to do an hour presentation. And literally the computer that I was in the room that I was supposed to be presenting in didn't work. So then I was standing there with my USB drive, you know. So I managed to, because I'm experienced presenter, I've done it before, so I could actually do it on the spot, if you like. But it's really, I don't know why Naomi's laughing. That's putting me off. That.
Sorry, Carrie, it's not to do. It's my smoke alarm just went off and my husband reacted badly. So I'm hoping none of that came through the microphone.
No, it was all right. But doing a presentation for an hour without any slides support, you know, you need to be really confident about what you're talking about. So make sure that you do take a printout. I don't recommend printing most of the time, but for a presentation, I would recommend that you have at least a printout of the slides, so you have a flow that you can commit to. If you put a video in, make sure that it's a supporting video and not essential to your presentation. So even though it's really cool to have a bit of visual stimulus with videos and all that, make sure that you remember what that video is supposed to say in your presentation. There used to be a big problem, and it's fixed now because we use the cloud. But people that use USB drives like we used to 10 years ago, please don't use USB drives anymore. But you could make a PowerPoint presentation and then have the media sit on your hard drive at home, not feed into the PowerPoint, and then when you do the PowerPoint on location, you haven't actually got the images or even the normal PowerPoint layout. So I would recommend highly this day and age that you store your presentation in the cloud so you can actually get to it. What I do is I store it on my OneDrive, I email it to my Gmail. If I can't get onto OneDrive, got it on Gmail. And then if I'm really, you know, old-fashioned, I've not done this for years, so I probably never will again. But then I will also have a USB drive with it on. But yeah, in general, I make sure I have two locations in the cloud that I can get to.
100% put it in the cloud. Like otherwise, you might go to the class you're presenting, and if you are doing it in person, and it might not be there, and then you have to go slideless. Sorry to cut you off, Naomi, but we're just going to, for the sake of time, do a whistle-stop tour of presentation delivery. Just basically saying what as quick as we can. Just state what the point is that you want to make, and potentially one reason why. So basically, we're now going to give some advice for actually in the presentation how you can effectively deliver that presentation. So, Naomi, what's your advice for effective presentation delivery?
And use that practice time we talked about earlier to make sure you're doing that.
I think we just lost you there for a second. Do you want to repeat that?
Because we were trying to be quick.
Clearly.
It's lost again. Is it raining?
That we talked about. Have I gone again?
No,
you went again.
You broke up again.
Speak clearly.
Speak clearly and audibly.
Yeah. That's basically it. Speak clearly and audibly. Well done. Yeah, your connection does seem to be slightly off, Naomi. I'm not sure if there's anything we can do about that at the moment. Alex, what do you think?
So I would always recommend dressing to match the occasion. So if you think about, just like thinking about the audience, think about the purpose and make sure you dress in a way that suits what you're doing. So for example, if you're doing a very, very formal presentation, don't wear a jumper and a shirt, wear something like a suit. But if you're doing something informal, like what we're doing, we're trying to be informal with this, then dress informally, but potentially not really unsmartly. So Tim is wearing an informal shirt, Naomi and I are wearing jumpers. So yeah, dress to match the occasion.
Very important though, dress comfortably, right? So I hate ties. I never wear a tie, and the head of the Royal House in the Netherlands years ago said, ties are superfluous, don't wear ties. I will never, even in the job application, I'm not going to wear a tie. And if people don't like that, then I'm not right for them and they're not right for me, so I'm just not going to work for them. So make sure that you do have comfortable, if you do have to go in a suit and things like that, comfortable shoes, comfortable clothing really makes a difference. Yeah.
Cool. So Tim, what's your whistle stop tour piece of advice for presentation delivery?
I would say remembering to breathe. So people always have the issue that they go too fast or too slow. And actually, it's perfectly acceptable for you to stand there and just breathe for a second. In fact, just not pushing yourself to keep going, but taking a moment to gather your thoughts quite frequently is better than carrying on and giving the wrong information. So don't worry about just being silent for a bit. It's actually quite powerful at times as well. If you ask the audience a question, for example, be quiet, right? Don't ask them a question and give the answer. There's no point in doing that. Just be confident and, take that step back and be quiet.
And inversely to that, if someone asks you a question, don't be afraid of waiting a few seconds to answer. A really quick example is I was at a tournament, a public speaking tournament effectively, and I thought I'd nailed the guy who I was against, and he spent about 30 seconds thinking about his answer, and his answer was really good. And I answered my question I was given immediately, and I was knocked out of the tournament. And they said, you're both equally good in our eyes, but your answer to the question was very sharp and very quick. He thought about his, composed himself, thought of a really eloquent answer, and that was far better. So don't worry if someone asks you a question about answering immediately. Think it, piece it together in your head, because what has been said cannot be unsaid. And so don't worry about taking your time to think. It may always seem like it's longer than it is, though. So, Naomi, have you got any more advice that you would like to give in this area?
I don't think I do. I've not got any other advice I was supposed to say. Do I have something else I'm supposed to say?
It's okay. I haven't actually written something else down for you.
We need to put names behind each of these sections, Alex.
I haven't put names behind this one. So just a bit like this one then, my next piece of advice is if you do make a mistake, just like I've just done by asking Naomi when it clearly says on my sheet that Naomi has nothing else to say in here, just keep going. Don't worry. Don't go, oh, okay, well, I'm out. Just keep talking. Like, take a breath, chill.
As you can see,
keep calm.
Really good at being asked questions without being prepared for them. See, if Alex had done that to Tim would have come up with something, but me, I need the time to prepare.
No, I get caught out as well, Naomi. We both get caught out. Alex is really good at asking questions to get you out.
Just for reference, that was deliberate, by the way, Naomi. To show my point off. So yeah, Tim, do you have any more advice, or do you want me to cover the body language one?
No, I'm going to cover the body language one, Alex, because I have actually got the whole list, and I realised there was one left on the list, so I thought, yes, I can pick that one up. So body language is really important. It's your composure. Again, don't over worry about your body language, but it does help if you're comfortable with yourself and if you are actually able to remember that you're not just talking, right? So one of the things I frequently see when I ask students to do presentations is they're so engrossed with what they are about to say that they get this tunnel vision and they only look at one spot in the room and nothing else. And that actually indicates a hell of a lot of nerves, basically. It means that they're not able to engage with the audience, that they're not able to confidently present that information. And even though it might sound cruel, but having that ability to confidently present information quite frequently is why we ask you to present something. So that might well cost you marks. If you come across as not very confident and not engaging and not having the right body language, that is a problem. And in communication, I said earlier for the joke, 90% of communication is body language. It's not 90%. But it's a really big part of communication, and being able to control that body language whilst you're presenting is a really good skill to have.
I would double down on that as well. Like, even if something I think is really important with body language is to portray that you're fairly confident, even if you're quite nervous, and we'll talk about ways you can cope with nerves just after this, then show that you're confident or try and look confident. Something I always do is, especially in a real life situations, I don't stand behind the lectern, because that can be seen as a little like hidey hole. I try and walk around and move towards the audience and don't just stay very static. It's difficult to do now because I've got such little box to stay in. Yeah. So I'm stuck inside a box, whereas usually I do a lot more movement than this.
Yeah. That's actually a really good tip as well. Getting closer to your audience actually makes them feel more engaged with it. We're social animals in the end, so having someone stand in front of a group is almost, if you think about a herd of lions, what do you call it? A pack of lions?
A pride of
lions. And you have one lion standing opposite a group of lions. You know that there's something wrong, right? That one lion is there because it's either going to fight with the pack or it's, has a problem with the pack. So when you're presenting, keep that in mind as well, that you are a social animal, and it is actually useful to come in and talk to people on a nearer basis. Naomi?
When you're presenting, it's useful to think of them as a pack of lions about to attack you.
So,
What? No, a naked.
That's what I got
lion.
from that.
no, this is
A naked pack of
psychology.
lions.
This is psychology, cheek. It's about the position that you have in front of a group, right? Think about an army procession. You get a group of soldiers that are standing in a square. The person that's standing in front of them doing this is the person in charge. The same happens with the lion. If you have a pride of lions, if you're facing off that group that says, "Oh, I'm here to be big and strong and to be bossy," so try and break that in your body language. It's actually a really good tip.
I genuinely misunderstood that the first time round.
Okay.
Is
it clear now?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
And audible, hopefully, linking back to Naomi's previous point. So that is the end of our advice for presentation and delivery and also preparing for presentations. But now we're going to do either our library resource spotlight or coping with nerves. But first of all, I guess this is where I'm going to leave, isn't it?
Yeah. Go on, Naomi, push him.
Oh, what? I was doing that, wasn't I? I was just going to elbow him out of the way.
Stuck in shot.
Oh, he's gone. He's gone. Oh, for that, what we're going to do is do that. I'm going to do this, and then I need to get that. Sorry, no, this is very technical. I've even got my tongue out of my mouth now.
Yes, whilst Tim's doing technical stuff, I just want to apologise for the interruptions earlier and just to reassure people I do normally have childcare. It's just that my daughter's nursery is temporarily closed because everyone's self-isolating. So
there is no need to apologise for that, Naomi. We've talked about it. It is fine. We are all people with lives and we're presenting from home, and that's always going to cause difficulties. At least it's not raining, so your internet's not dropped out yet. So that's a good thing.
Indeed.
So, I think we will have a quick look at the resource of the week because...
Yes, because we said we would.
Yeah, and because someone's here.
Yes. So our resource spotlight of the week is a podcast that Alex recorded last academic year with the lovely Dianna. Dianna is here watching this live stream. She has been in the chat, so we know she's there.
And Dianna have fled by now.
Maybe. Dianna worked with us for the previous academic year as our graduate placement student. So we had a lovely time working with Dianna. And one of the many, many things that Dianna did during that year was record this podcast with Alex. And in it, Dianna talks about her experience of giving a presentations. I believe it got a good mark at the end of it. She talks about how she felt beforehand, during, what difficulties she had and how she overcame those difficulties. So Tim, I think, is going to show you how to access that podcast. I just did. So I've shown that you can get that through the library page, and then you go to the find subject information, then you go to the skills guides, and then you go to the presentation skills guide. Just so everybody's aware, we're working on making our library online interface a bit smoother and a bit nicer, but yeah, for now that's probably the easiest way to get there. It's part of a bigger series of podcasts, Naomi, isn't it? We do record and release lots of podcasts. I don't think that one was put up part of a specific series.
Yes. The assignment journey.
Was that part of the assignment journey?
I think so. Yeah.
It's not about assignments. Alex is in the chat. He can let us know. I believe the assignment journey is about writing assignments.
Good, forget whatever I said. Anyway, we do podcasts. That's the point of highlighting this. So if you like podcasts, and we found actually that they're becoming quickly our most popular content, which is really cool. If you like podcasts, then go and what's it called? Use your favorite podcasting tool and find Derby Uni Library. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe, and Alex again can pop in the chat what you need to search for. University Derby Skills podcast, I think, will bring up our podcast on all podcasting sites.
I've just realised I'm going to point this out because it really annoys me. Normally, I'm very carefully setting my background and things like that, and we've just switched from 3 to 2 in Zoom, and my lunch bowl is right
I
there.
was not pointing that out, but I had noted it to say to you later.
It's because I'm in such a small room. So there, now it's a lot tidier, see? Anyway, on that basis, we are going to talk about, and we only have about 10 minutes, so we'll make it pretty quick. We are going to talk about how to deal with nerves. So we have done a live stream on this last year, but we just thought it would be a good opportunity to reiterate some of those things. And I don't know if you managed to read the document and see a bit of it, Naomi, but I'm going to ask you to talk about preparedness anxiety. Is that all right?
Yes, of course. And of course, I read the document and watched the podcast,
course
the live stream, because you asked me to.
Yeah,
so
and
I
you're
did.
Prepared. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So preparedness anxiety is thinking. Oh dear, this is me now feeling on the spot. So this is a great example of nerves that have now suddenly struck me as I'm talking. Preparedness anxiety. So in the live stream, Tim split up what he was talking about to talk on the one hand about preparedness anxiety and on the other hand about performance anxiety. So preparedness anxiety is the anxiety that is associated with all that preparation that you're doing. So you are preparing to do your presentation. We spoke earlier about all those different ways that you can prepare, and there can be anxiety and nerves associated with all of that preparation. And one of the really good ways that you can deal with that is and this is partly what Tim was saying in the live stream and partly what I've been thinking about myself, but it's identifying the things that you can control. So when you're preparing, identify what you can control and what you can't control. There's a lovely, you will have seen it across social media, give me the strength to control the things I can't know and let go of the things I can't control and know the difference. That was a terrible paraphrase, but still. So identify what you can control and do what you can do to modify that. So that might be really practical stuff. So you can control, we were talking earlier about being comfortable in what you're wearing, you can control that. It might be things that I tend to get, my mind gets fixated on something that I then get nervous about. So the more presentations I do, the more I get to know myself. So it might not be something that's really obvious to other people, but there are things that I know I can control that I will worry about, but I know that in advance, so I know steps I can take. I'm trying to think of an example that I want to share, and I can't think of a direct example of that right now. But things like, if I'm going to worry, for example, that my hair looks wrong, that might be something that lots of people wouldn't worry about, but I might worry about that. So I know before I do a presentation, one of the steps I need to take, Tim's combing his beard, is to go find a mirror and check my hair, so that I know as I'm going in, that's something I can not worry about, that might otherwise have really stuck in my head to worry about. So there's lots of things that I know I can do before I go into a presentation that I can really control. I have notes. Tim and Alex have 2 screens and can bring up our lovely Word document of notes. But one of the things I do, I've got my notes here. I was running a workshop last night, so I've got my notes from that here as well. So that's something I really do to prepare. I know that if I don't have those notes, I will worry. So I make sure that I do. Even if I never look at them, I know that having them there stops me worrying.
It's about that. The thing I talked about in that presentation is actually understanding that there are a lot of factors that can make you anxious, but that you can control. And you've explained that very eloquently, so thanks for that. The thing that I want to talk about is the thing called performance anxiety. And performance anxiety is something that we all suffer from. Suffer, it depends on how you look at it. So anxiety is a natural thing, right? It's built into our brain, into the way that we operate, in the way that we work. And it's normal. It actually tells us that, either we're in danger or we're doing something that we don't like or whatever it is. It's a perfectly natural part of our brain and how we operate. Performance anxiety you can't necessarily control. So in the and I think we'll link to it in the description for this live cast later on. But in that live stream I did before, I talked about a colleague. I used to work at the regional telly and radio station, and my colleague there had worked there as the anchor for the news for years. And every time she went on screen, she would get really anxious before the actual news. She would have to go to the toilet and compose herself and then come back and actually do the news like nothing had gone on. And when I realized that as a student who was doing these presentations every week at uni, I realized that my anxiety doing them was the same anxiety that she had, even though she did it for a living. And that's a really important part as well. So the thing that I really want to impress on people is that it's normal to feel anxious before you go into a presentation. There is nothing wrong with having that feeling. It's when it becomes too much, where if you have a mental health issue, an underlying issue that actually drives the anxiety to a point where you can't control it, that's where you need to try and think about, maybe I need to talk to someone, maybe I need to find some help to deal with this. And actually, one of the things I said in that live stream is we have a really good well-being service, and they offer support with severe anxiety issues in general. So if you feel like you are getting too anxious before you go into an exam or into a presentation, reach out to the well-being service, because they will be able to help with these things. Yeah, so I think those are the two key items about nerves and doing presentations. So shall we round off? Have you actually got the actual? I'm moving my mouse on my other computer whilst looking at the screen, so it doesn't look like I'm doing this. And then I'm going to ask: has anybody got any questions? That's a good question, isn't it?
That is a good question.
Don't see anything. Dianna's still here. Dianna, we love you, we miss you, and we will see you soon. I'm just going to highlight that actually, because all the people will be completely confused by that comment. But Dianna used to work for us last year as a graduate placement student. And did an absolutely wonderful job, and I believe she still works with the university in one way or another. So hopefully when we get out of all this COVID, which is proper anxiety inducing by the way, once we get out of this, then hopefully we'll be able to meet up again and have a cup of tea somewhere. Oh, she misses us too. See, we love Dianna so much.
We've not pointed out at all what the automatic captioning is saying, but I do want to just say that when Tim said COVID, it translated it as gophers. So once the gophers have gone as well, I think that would be also worrying.
Isn't it amazing? It's got this automatic, there's an algorithm that's doing this transcription, and it's not got COVID in there yet. It has to be the word of the year, hasn't it?
Presumably.
See, it's not done it again. It's gone COVID.
What happens if I say COVID?
Covered. Yeah, that's clearly because you're posh, yeah. Coffee. That's because I'm from. Because you're posh. Anyway, we shouldn't look at that. I don't know if we'll experiment with the automatic captioning next week. We did experiment this week, though, just to highlight that as well. If you remember, last week, Naomi was supposed to join us, and it went wrong. So we've had a good look around and found a different tool. So we're using today something called Google Meet, which seems to work better for us, except that the captioning is pretty pants, so we might have to work on that. Anyway, on that note, shall we put a unexpected Naomi in?
We do like the unexpected me.
Good.
I like to be unexpected.
Yes. Oh wait, I've got the wrong unexpected Naomi. I need that's the one I need. Right. From me and from Naomi and from Alex, I'm sure he's still watching us. Naomi, wave. Yeah, that's it. We will see you for the next stream next week. Thank you, lovely people, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, see, the audio is still on now, Naomi, so we can talk. And we can talk about Alex because he's not here.
But we wouldn't do that.
No, we wouldn't do that. It's not nice to do that sort of thing. Okay, we shall stop the stream. Thanks, Naomi. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Bye.